The motivation trap that keeps you broke. You're waiting to feel motivated before you take action on your wealth. You watch inspiring videos, you get pumped up, you have a great day or week where you're on fire. Then the motivation fades and you stop. You wait for the next spike of inspiration, the next wave of excitement, the next surge of energy, and your wealth creation becomes this roller coaster, peaks of intense action followed by valleys of nothing. Here's what you need to understand: motivation spikes, frequency compounds. The people creating real, lasting wealth aren't more motivated than you. They've mastered something completely different: quantum consistency. And until you understand why consistency in your energetic frequency beats motivation every single time, you'll stay stuck in the cycle of inspired action followed by collapse. Let me explain what I mean by quantum consistency versus motivation. Motivation is an emotional state, a surge of desire, excitement, or inspiration that drives you to take action. It's powerful when it's there, but it's temporary by nature. Emotions are designed to be temporary. They spike, they fade, they come and go. Building wealth on motivation is like trying to sail across an ocean by only moving when the wind is strong. You'll make progress in bursts, but you'll spend most of your time drifting or stuck. Quantum consistency is completely different. It's not about how you feel on any given day. It's about maintaining a steady energetic frequency regardless of your emotional state. It's showing up, taking aligned action, and holding your wealth consciousness day after day, whether you feel motivated or not. This consistent frequency creates what I call quantum compounding, where each day of aligned frequency builds on the previous day, creating exponential growth over time. Here's the quantum principle at work. The field doesn't respond to intensity. It responds to consistency. One day of intense, motivated action sends a strong signal, but it's just one signal. If you disappear for 2 weeks until you feel motivated again, the field receives inconsistent data. It can't organize reality around your desires because your signal keeps cutting out. But if you show up consistently, even at a lower intensity, even when you're not feeling it, you're sending a steady signal that the field can lock onto and respond to with consistent manifestation. Think about it. Which grows wealth faster? Working with intense motivation for 1 day a week, or working with steady presence 7 days a week? The mathematics are clear. Consistent, daily action compounds. Sporadic bursts of motivated action, no matter how intense, don't compound because there are gaps where momentum dies. Every time you stop and start, you're starting from zero again. But consistency maintains momentum, and momentum is where quantum wealth acceleration happens. The motivation trap keeps you broke because it makes wealth creation dependent on an unreliable emotional state. You're essentially saying, "I'll build wealth when I feel like it." But the wealthy don't wait to feel like it. They've built systems, habits, and practices that function independently of how they feel. Their wealth creation happens whether they're motivated, tired, excited, bored, or anything else. This independence from emotional state is the foundation of sustainable abundance. Motivation also creates what I call the inspiration addiction. You become dependent on external sources to spike your energy. You need to watch a video, read a book, attend an event, or hear a story to get yourself going. But this means your wealth creation is dependent on external inputs, which makes it fragile and unsustainable. Quantum consistency is self-sustaining because it's based on internal commitment and discipline, not external stimulation. Another problem with motivation is that it often leads to over-effort followed by burnout. When you're motivated, you tend to do too much. You work long hours, you push hard, you go all in. This is unsustainable. You burn out, need recovery time, and during that recovery, your momentum dies. Then you need another motivation spike to get going again. This cycle prevents the steady, sustainable rhythm that creates long-term wealth. Quantum consistency also trains your nervous system differently than motivation does. Motivation keeps your nervous system in a state of needing excitement, novelty, and high energy to function. But consistent practice trains your nervous system that you're someone who shows up regardless of circumstances, which is a wealth identity trait. Your nervous system learns, we are reliable. We follow through. we maintain our frequency. This identity level shift is what creates permanent wealth capacity, not temporary motivated bursts. The science of quantum frequency compounding. To understand why consistency beats motivation, you need to understand the quantum mechanics of frequency compounding. This isn't just philosophy, it's how energy works at the fundamental level of reality. And once you understand this, you'll never rely on motivation alone again. In quantum physics, coherent frequency creates interference patterns that amplify over time. When you broadcast a consistent frequency, say, the frequency of abundance, day after day, those signals don't just add up, they multiply. Each day's signal interferes constructively with the previous day's signals, creating amplification. This is quantum compounding. But if your signal is inconsistent, strong one day, absent for 3 days, strong again, absent again, you get destructive interference. The signals cancel each other out instead of amplifying. Think of it like compound interest but energetic. When you put money in an account and leave it, the interest compounds daily on the entire balance. But if you put money in, take it all out, put some back in, take it out again, you never build compound momentum. The same principle applies to your energetic frequency. Consistent frequency allows quantum compounding. Inconsistent frequency, which is what motivation creates, prevents compounding and keeps you starting over constantly. The quantum field has what's called a coherence threshold, a minimum consistency of signal required before it can organize physical reality in response. Think of it like a radio trying to lock onto a station. If the signal keeps cutting in and out, the radio can't lock on. But once the signal is consistent enough, the radio locks on and delivers clear sound. Your manifestation works the same way. Inconsistent motivated bursts never reach the coherence threshold. But consistent daily frequency does, which is when manifestation accelerates dramatically. There's also a principle called quantum tunneling that only works with sustained pressure. In quantum mechanics, particles can pass through barriers that should be impossible to penetrate, but only when consistent pressure is applied. Your wealth barriers work the same way. Consistent frequency can tunnel through obstacles that motivated bursts can't penetrate. You're not breaking through the barrier with force, you're dissolving it with sustained coherent frequency. Another aspect is what's called phase locking, when multiple oscillating systems sync up through consistent interaction. When you maintain consistent frequency, your personal field begins to phase lock with the abundance frequency of the quantum field itself. Once phase locked, you're riding the wave of universal abundance rather than trying to create your own separate wave. But phase locking requires consistency. You have to show up at the same frequency long enough for the synchronization to occur. The nervous system also responds to consistency through a process called neuroplastic reinforcement. Every day you take action from abundance consciousness, you strengthen the neural pathways associated with wealth creation. Every day you skip because you're not motivated, those pathways weaken. Consistent practice literally rewires your brain for wealth. Motivated bursts don't create lasting neural change because the gaps between bursts allow the old pathways to reassert themselves. There's also hormonal consistency to consider. Motivation is often driven by dopamine spikes, the excitement of novelty and possibility. But dopamine crashes lead to the motivation valleys. Consistent practice creates steady serotonin production, the neurotransmitter of contentment and sustained well-being. This steady state is more sustainable for long-term wealth creation than the dopamine roller coaster of motivation-based action. Quantum consistency also creates what's called an attractor field, a stable energetic pattern that naturally draws aligned circumstances toward it. But attractor fields require consistency to form and maintain. Think of it like a whirlpool. It needs constant circular motion to maintain its shape and pulling power. Stop the motion, and the whirlpool dissipates. Your wealth attractor field is the same. Consistent frequency maintains it. Sporadic motivated action never builds enough coherent pattern to create a true attractor field. Finally, there's the principle of measurement in quantum mechanics. What you consistently observe, you collapse into reality. Motivation makes your observation of wealth consciousness sporadic. But quantum consistency means you're consistently observing yourself as someone who creates wealth, which through the observer effect, collapses that reality into physical manifestation. The more consistent your observation through aligned action, the more solid your manifestation becomes. Building wealth through daily frequency alignment. Now let's get practical. How do you actually build quantum consistency instead of relying on motivation? This is about creating what I call wealth frequency rituals, daily practices that maintain your abundance frequency regardless of how you feel. These aren't big, time-consuming routines. They're small, sustainable practices that compound over time. The foundation is what I call the daily frequency anchor, a non-negotiable practice you do every single morning before engaging with the world. This could be 5 minutes of abundance visualization, a gratitude practice, embodiment work, or simply sitting quietly and tuning into the feeling of wealth. The specific practice matters less than the consistency. You're training your system that every single day begins with wealth frequency, which sets the tone for everything that follows. The key to sustainability is making it small enough that you can't talk yourself out of it. If your practice requires an hour and you're exhausted, you'll skip it. But if it's 5 minutes, you can always do it. The power isn't in the length of the practice, it's in the consistency. 5 minutes daily for a year creates more quantum compounding than hour-long sessions once a week. Small and consistent beats big and sporadic every time. Next, implement what I call micro-commitments, tiny wealth-aligned actions you take every single day regardless of motivation. Maybe it's reaching out to one potential client. Maybe it's writing one paragraph of your book. Maybe it's reviewing your finances for 5 minutes. These micro-commitments maintain your momentum even on days when you feel no motivation. You're proving to yourself and the field that your wealth creation isn't dependent on how you feel. It's who you are. Create environmental cues that support consistency. Your environment should make wealth frequency the path of least resistance. This might mean having your morning practice materials ready the night before. It might mean setting phone reminders for your micro-commitments. It might mean removing distractions that pull you out of frequency. You're designing your environment so that consistency is automatic rather than requiring willpower. Use what I call consistency tracking, visible evidence of your daily practice. This could be a simple calendar where you mark each day you maintain your frequency, or a journal where you note your daily wealth actions. This visual feedback serves multiple purposes. It proves you're building consistency, it creates accountability, and it generates dopamine from small wins that help sustain the practice. You're making your consistency visible, which reinforces it. Develop non-negotiable boundaries around your consistency practice. This is sacred time that doesn't get sacrificed for other things. Not because you're rigid, but because you understand that this consistency is the foundation of your wealth. Other things can be flexible, but not this. This boundary communicates to your nervous system and to the field that your wealth frequency is a priority, which strengthens your attractor field. Build in what I call resilience protocols, how you maintain consistency when circumstances try to break it. Travel, illness, chaos, these will happen. The key is having a minimal version of your practice that works even in these situations. Maybe your full practice is 20 minutes, but your minimal version is 2 minutes. When disruption happens, you do the minimal version. This maintains the consistency, the energetic thread, even when circumstances aren't ideal. Use habit stacking, attaching your wealth frequency practice to an existing habit. Maybe you practice abundance visualization right after brushing your teeth, or you do your micro-commitment right after your morning coffee. By linking the new habit to an existing one, you leverage existing neural pathways, which makes consistency easier. Your brain already expects the existing habit, so adding the wealth practice becomes automatic. Finally, focus on process goals rather than outcome goals. An outcome goal is, make $10,000 this month. That creates pressure and depends on external circumstances. A process goal is, maintain my wealth frequency daily and take one aligned action every day. This is entirely within your control and creates sustainable momentum that eventually produces outcomes that exceed what you would have set as outcome goals. The momentum physics of consistent frequency. Once you've established quantum consistency, something powerful happens. You enter what I call abundance momentum, where wealth creation becomes progressively easier and faster. Understanding the physics of this momentum helps you appreciate why consistency is so crucial and motivation is so unreliable. Momentum in physics is mass times velocity. The more mass you have moving at a certain speed, the harder it is to stop and the more force it carries. In quantum wealth creation, your mass is the accumulated consistency of your practice, and your velocity is the frequency you're maintaining. The longer you maintain consistency, the more momentum you build, and the harder it becomes for circumstances to knock you off track. In the beginning, maintaining consistency requires significant effort because you have no momentum. You're starting from zero, and everything feels heavy. This is where most people quit. They don't feel results yet, so they think it's not working. But this is exactly like trying to move a stationary car. The hardest part is getting it rolling. Once it's moving, maintaining, or even increasing speed requires far less effort. You just need to push through the initial resistance period where you're building momentum from nothing. The timeline for momentum varies, but typically, you start feeling the shift around 30 to 60 days of consistent practice. This isn't arbitrary. It's about how long it takes to establish new neural pathways, to shift your nervous system's baseline, and to build enough coherent frequency in the field for it to start responding with tangible manifestation. If you quit before this threshold, you never get to experience momentum, and you convince yourself consistency doesn't work. Once you have momentum, a powerful phenomenon occurs: effort reversal. Initially, maintaining consistency requires effort while resting feels easy. But once you have momentum, maintaining consistency feels easy and natural, while stopping feels difficult and uncomfortable. Your system has adapted to the consistent frequency as your new normal. This is when wealth creation starts to feel effortless because you're riding momentum rather than creating it from scratch every day. Momentum also creates what's called positive feedback loops. Your consistent practice produces small results. Those small results reinforce your consistency because you're seeing evidence it works. That stronger consistency produces bigger results, which further reinforces consistency. You enter an upward spiral where consistency and results reinforce each other. But you can only access this spiral by maintaining consistency long enough to get the initial results that start the feedback loop. There's also momentum in your nervous system regulation. Initially, maintaining wealth frequency might trigger anxiety or discomfort because it's unfamiliar. But with consistent practice, your nervous system adapts. The wealth frequency becomes your new baseline, your new comfort zone. Once this happens, you can hold higher frequencies of abundance without your system going into resistance. Your capacity expands not through force, but through consistent exposure. The quantum field also builds momentum in its response to you. The longer you maintain consistent frequency, the more the field organizes to support that frequency. Opportunities start appearing. Synchronicities increase. Resources show up. The field has had time to rearrange itself around your consistent signal. But if your signal keeps starting and stopping, the field can't complete this reorganization. Consistency gives the field time to build momentum in supporting your wealth. Another aspect of momentum is identity solidification. Each day you maintain consistency, you're proving to yourself, I am someone who shows up. This identity shift happens gradually through repetition. Eventually, the wealth-building consistency isn't something you do, it's who you are. When consistency becomes identity, it's effortless and permanent. But this identity transformation requires time and repetition, which only consistency provides. Finally, momentum creates what's called slipstream effect. Just like cyclists drafting behind each other face less wind resistance, once you have wealth momentum, creating more wealth requires less effort. Your established pattern creates a slipstream that new wealth flows through easily. But establishing the initial pattern requires consistent effort through the resistance phase. Most people never push through to create the slipstream. Living in quantum wealth consistency. Once you've built true quantum consistency and established momentum, you enter a completely different paradigm of wealth creation. This is what I call living in wealth frequency, where abundance isn't something you do, it's something you are. Here's what this sustained state looks like and how to maintain it for long-term prosperity. The first shift is that consistency becomes identity. You're not someone who practices consistency, you're someone who is consistent. This isn't semantic, it's a fundamental shift in how you relate to your wealth practices. When asked if you'll maintain your frequency today, the question seems absurd. Of course you will. That's who you are. This identity-level integration makes the practice effortless and permanent. You also develop what I call weather resistance, the ability to maintain your frequency regardless of external circumstances. Bad day. You maintain frequency. Great day. You maintain frequency. Financial setback? You maintain frequency. Unexpected windfall? You maintain frequency. Your frequency isn't reactive to circumstances because it's rooted in identity, not emotion. This stability is magnetic. The field responds powerfully to someone whose frequency doesn't waver based on conditions. Your results become predictable rather than random. When you're operating on motivation, results are unpredictable because your input is inconsistent. But with quantum consistency, you can almost calculate your results because you're putting in consistent input. This predictability allows you to plan, to scale, to build systematically rather than hoping for lucky breaks. Wealth becomes a science you're executing rather than a mystery you're hoping for. You notice that you need less and less external input. You're not constantly seeking motivation, inspiration, or information. You have your practice, you maintain your frequency, and that's enough. This independence is liberating and powerful. You're not dependent on external conditions, people, or circumstances to maintain your wealth creation. You've become a self-sustaining wealth generation system. Your nervous system develops a new baseline. What used to feel like a stretch now feels normal. Prices you once couldn't imagine charging are now standard. Income levels that seemed impossible are now expected. Opportunities that would have seemed too big now feel appropriate. This isn't arrogance, it's your nervous system adapting to your consistent higher frequency. You've literally reprogrammed your comfort zone through consistency. You also experience what I call compound manifestation, where one manifestation leads naturally to the next in accelerating fashion. This happens because your consistent frequency has created such a strong attractor field that the quantum field is continuously organizing opportunities, resources, and circumstances in your favor. You're not manifesting through effort anymore, you're receiving through alignment. Perhaps most importantly, you develop unshakable trust in the process. Because you've experienced how consistency produces results over and over, you don't doubt anymore. Temporary circumstances don't shake you because you know that maintaining frequency always produces outcomes. This trust is the final piece. When you trust the process completely, you release all resistance and allow the full power of quantum consistency to work. Living in quantum wealth consistency means you've transcended the motivation trap. You don't wait to feel inspired. You don't need external pump-ups. You've built an internal structure of consistent practice that generates wealth regardless of your emotional state. You've become a quantum wealth generator, reliable, steady, compounding. The irony is that once you've built this consistency, you often feel more inspired, more motivated, more excited than when you were chasing motivation. But now these feelings are byproducts of your consistent practice, not prerequisites for it. You act first from consistency, and motivation follows. This is the reversal that creates lasting wealth. So here's your path forward. Stop waiting for motivation. Stop chasing inspiration. Build a small, sustainable daily practice of wealth frequency. Maintain it with absolute consistency for 60 days minimum. Track your consistency visually. Protect your practice with boundaries. Push through the initial resistance phase where it feels effortless. And once you feel momentum building, maintain it at all costs. Because motivation spikes, but frequency compounds. And compound quantum frequency over time creates wealth that no amount of motivated bursts can match. This is how you build real, lasting, ever-expanding prosperity. Not through peaks of inspired action, but through the quiet, consistent practice of showing up daily in wealth frequency. This is quantum wealth consistency, and it's the foundation of every lasting fortune.